Hello, I'm Katie, and welcome back to Retromade, where we dive into the movies and moments that shaped our pop culture past. Today, we're rewinding to both 1980 and 1997. You might wonder why. We're going to cover movies that showcase massive shifts that Hughes' career took, starting with his very first movie writing credit, The Secret Life of Nikola Tesla. I bet you've never heard of it, right? I hadn't either. And then one of his final writing credits of the 90s, because we do the 80s and 90s here on Retromade. This is Home Alone 3. And yes, because I am a completist, we will cover the actual final credit of the 90s in an upcoming episode. So because this episode's a little bit different than usual, I'm going to go solo. And also, I didn't kennel the dogs, so hopefully they're not a complete nuisance in today's episode. I do hope you like it, even if you have not seen these movies. And if you do appreciate the effort on this episode or any prior along the Retromade journey, you can check the show notes for a link to my tip page on Captivate, which is the last link in the show notes. While I do love these movies in the pop culture of this time period, it is actually a fair amount of work and effort. So if you've been enjoying Retromade, here's your chance to show it. I do know that also times can be really tough, and this might not be super feasible for everyone. So I'd also really be truly grateful for reviews in whichever app that you're listening to this on. It has been a while since I've received one, so I'd really appreciate it. Or if you're on YouTube, please make sure that you're subscribed and give me a thumbs up or a comment on episodes. And right now, while you're listening, would be a really great time to do any of those things. Wink, wink. Okay, just a couple updates before we get into the meat of the show. It's been a little bit since I've released an episode, not too long, but this is a longer break than I've usually taken. I'm sure you've all been on the edge of your seats for the next Retromade episode, so here we are. Additionally, we are nearing the end of the John Hughes season, which has been a long season. Actually, the first season was pretty long too. Again, I'm a completist. And while they're not all bangers, I think at least there's always something interesting or fun to talk about. Also, there's the retro trivia that usually brings me back in time, at least. Does it for you? Please let me know either way. Whether you like this particular segment, I know it takes on different forms. And if I continue with the third season, it will take on, if people like it, a little bit of a different format. But please let me know whether you like it or not. If you prefer just that I get straight into the movie discussion, I'd also just welcome the feedback. So retromadepodcast@gmail.com, or you can always comment on YouTube. Now, regarding season 3, I have been thinking about it for quite a while, and I have an idea that I've been toying around with that would be a little different than the first 2 seasons. But before I commit the time that it does take, I really am genuinely curious how people are feeling about the show. If you've been enjoying it, please let me know. It does really help. This will kind of at least help me determine if or how I move forward with future seasons. So again, you can email me, you can comment, you can like, social media, tips on the Captivate site, etc. All of these things will be helpful for me moving forward. All right, enough about that. Let's open the time capsule, you guys. This is weird because we're spanning 17 years, like a whole person's lifetime, between the release dates of the movies we're going to talk about today. And they could not be more vastly different. But in this time period between 1980 and 1997, a ton changed in that 17-year period. There's just so much that happened, and it feels like lifetimes apart. So let's compare. How about this episode? What was going on in the world of pop culture? 1980 versus 1997. Play along. Some of them are super easy, so I really hope you do. Number 1 song. So the year, for the whole year, the number 1 Billboard song, 1980 versus 1997. Here's your clue. 1980's top song was sleek, cool, new wave. 1997's was a global public mourning moment disguised as a pop single. I think that hint might give it away for the 1997 at least, but 1980 is Call Me by Blondie. And the global public mourning moment was Candle in the Wind by Elton John after Princess Diana died, obviously. Number 1 movie, worldwide box office. Both years were dominated by sequels in spirit, one expanding a sci-fi myth, the other redefining spectacle and romance. Any guesses? Any guesses? Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back for 1980. And then 1997, spectacle, romance. It is, of course, Titanic. Who else had the double VHS copy of this? I certainly did. The number one TV show, 1980, was about primetime excess and scheming, while 1997 viewers wanted fast-paced chaos with a pager and a stethoscope. Obviously, that's ER for 97. But 1980, Dallas, which we've talked about several times in these early 80s episodes that we've covered. Big show, big show. And maybe I'll have to check it out at some point. What is the biggest celebrity / news event for each year? I will say both of them are deaths of famous people. The world felt like it was collectively stopping, one marking the end of a 60s dream, the other exposing modern media obsession. 1980, I wasn't even born yet, but I remember hearing about it. The murder of John Lennon. And then who could forget the death of Princess Diana? That's the 1997 biggest celebrity news event. Okay, big tech gadget moment. The first one kind of surprised me. 1980 made music personal and portable. And I thought this came much later. But the answer is the Sony Walkman goes fully mainstream in 1980. I feel like I had one in 87, and it felt new. Okay, and then 97 quietly started killing VHS without anyone noticing yet. This is 97. And the answer is DVD players launch in the US. Now, this one feels kind of the opposite. I would have thought that was a little earlier. At any rate. Okay, so now that we are in the mind frame of both 80 and 97, let's get into the movies. The first one that we're going to cover today is The Secret Life of Nikola Tesla. Before he became the king of teen movies, John Hughes took a surprising detour into the AC/DC wars. In this 1980 Yugoslavian biopic, Hughes served as a co-writer, helping to shape the English language script for a film that feels less like The Breakfast Club and more like high-stakes historical science experiment. Yeah, so I'm going to try and cover this without it feeling too much like a history lesson, even though honestly it seems like we could all use one at this point. First, writing credit for Hughes. It is seemingly out of left field. And I actually watched this quite a while back. So I'm trying to jog my memory a little bit, but I did watch it, as I sometimes do, on a library DVD. But it does seem like it now might be floating around on Prime Video, depending on what mood the algorithm is in. So you guys might be able to catch it if you want. It actually does have a 7.2 IMDb rating, believe it or not. This was released February 19th, 1980 in Yugoslavia. It's almost 2 hours long. The director, let me see if I can pronounce some of these names correctly because it's Yugoslavian. We have Kristo Papic is the director. I think I got that right. And I didn't know anything about him, but he is a titan of the Yugoslav Black Wave cinema movement. Papic was a master of politically charged satire, which this definitely is, and surrealist allegory who spent his career fearlessly skewering authoritarianism, most notably in his award-winning sci-fi horror cult classic, The Rat Savior. If anybody has seen The Rat Savior, please let me know. Or really, if you've seen The Secret Life of Nikola Tesla, please let me know. Or if you are just familiar with the story in general, outside of the movie. I feel like I vaguely did, but I needed the history lesson, let's be honest. Now, like I said, John Hughes he's a co-writer here. And while he's not the primary writer, he's cutting his teeth. He did contribute to the screenplay, specifically working on the English language dialogue and the script adaptation for international audiences, alongside John W. English. And then Kristo Papic was also a writer, along with Ivo Bresnan and Ivan Kusan. All right, so this movie is a dramatized biopic that follows the visionary inventor as he battles industry titans Thomas Edison and J.P. Morgan, played by, guess, Orson Welles, to bring free wireless power to the world. It's a fascinating, super low budget, deep dive into the scientific Superman whose radical ideas for alternating current and global energy were decades ahead of their time, which we'll get into, all captured with the distinct, grainy 80s cult cinema charm. Despite it being a super low budget Yugoslavian movie, again, you guys, the IMDb rating is super high. And the cast is quite well known for this kind of a production. So you might wonder how it managed to cast such heavyweights like Orson Welles. Welles particularly joined the production through his partner, Croatian actress Oja Kodar, who actually in the movie plays Katherine Johnson. And I didn't realize this, but apparently he had a longstanding habit of taking international acting gigs in order to fund some of his own independent film projects. Also, the Yugoslavian government backed the studio, Zagreb Film, and it leveraged its low production costs and previous working relationship with Welles to secure him for the role of J.P. Morgan. So yes, let's talk more about Orson Welles, which I'm sure we've all seen, Citizen Kane. He's most famous for his 1941 cinematic masterpiece. And depending on what mood you're in, you might be like, is it that good? I think it kind of depends on what mood you're in and how generous you're feeling personally. But he was only 25 when he co-wrote, directed, and starred in that. So it is frequently cited as the greatest film ever made. I disagree, but what does my opinion matter? But, he's legendary for his 1938 radio broadcast of the War of the Worlds, gained international notoriety for reportedly causing widespread panic among listeners who believed a Martian invasion was actually occurring. I don't think I realized that, but I found it really interesting. Also, in my brain, Orson Welles is so from days of the past that I thought he'd be dead by this time. But this is how wild 1980 is. It seems like it was maybe 30 years ago. No, it was 46 years ago. But Orson Welles was born in 1915, making him only 65 at the time of this movie. I don't know. Time makes zero sense. Now, who plays Nikola Tesla? It is, again, let me try with my pronunciation, Petar Božović. Did I get that right? He plays Nikola Tesla, who's the Yugoslavian electrical engineer who introduced the concept of alternating current, AC. We talked about Orson Welles playing J.P. Morgan. The players in this, titans of the industry, George Westinghouse, played by Strother Martin. I'm unfamiliar with the next couple people, but I think they were, for the time, quite famous. So apparently Strother Martin is one of Hollywood's most recognizable character actors of the time, of course, known for his distinct voice and frequent collaborations with Paul Newman and John Wayne. So he is also in Cool Hand Luke, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, True Grit, and Up in Smoke. So that's Strother Martin. I'm only going to talk about the four main characters here, the last of which is Thomas Edison. Did you guys know that his middle name is Alva? Thomas Alva Edison? I didn't know that. But in this movie, he is played by Dennis Patrick, who was apparently a prolific guest star in over 1,800 TV episodes. He also had several prominent mainstream film and television roles. Some of the most well-known would be Dark Shadows, Joe from 1970. I think that's a movie about Joe Kennedy, if I'm not mistaken, with Peter Boyle. Also Dallas, and his absolute final film role was in 1994 with Kevin Bacon in The Air Up There. You guys remember that one? Boy, I had forgotten about it until just now. Okay, you guys might want to check it out. It's definitely different. It's extremely different from really anything else I've watched, and quite a departure from what we know John Hughes as. So it's just, it's a study in terms of how, this is where John Hughes cut his teeth and then what he went on to do. It's interesting anyway. So this movie opens in 1943 with Nikola Tesla alone in a dark New York hotel room, giving what feels like a ghost interview from the afterlife. I feel like I should have watched it twice, but it seemed to kind of pop around in time a little bit. And also, I don't know the story super well, so I really had to pay attention. We're in current day, 1943, and it hops over the late 1800s into the early 1900s. Tesla is portrayed as a classic genius type, so wildly brilliant, super awkward, possibly psychic, and definitely not going to be touching your hand. He compulsively washes his hands and refuses to shake hands. So he's that kind of like, that's who we're dealing with. He also claims to get full-on mental visions, and he is often seen or portrayed as really sad, lonely, and emotionally unplugged. These people, no one can understand them. I feel like they're kind of, they're on a plane of their own, which is sad. But as a kid, he sees lightning storms, he reads obsessively and becomes fascinated with inventions, obviously, leading to him to have this lifelong mission, which is to revolutionize the world through electricity. And also, he is navigating this era dominated by corporate greed. Super fun. Also, not at all like what's happening today. So at one point, he famously claims that he intercepted intelligent radio signals from outer space while experimenting in Colorado Springs, my neck of the woods. So sometimes people don't take him super seriously. I found a few things really poignant or prescient for the times that we're living in right now. One of which is that he warns over a century ago that the current energy sources are poisoning the planet, resources will run out, and humanity should have access to free, clean power. And wouldn't you know it, this is where everything goes sideways. Shocking, right? Because free energy is great for humanity, but terrible for shareholders. That's right. So Tesla, he has this plan to eliminate wires, which does threaten the current industries, the copper industry, fossil fuels, basically anyone whose business model relied on selling you electricity. Sound familiar? It's like really tragic, actually. And going back to what Pat Peach is known for, his commentary on this type of thing and authoritarianism. So he's at this collision point between a humanitarian visionary, that's who he is, versus capitalism's need to put a meter on goddamn everything. Enter the villains of the story. That's right. These people that we know as household names, like J.P. Morgan, like Thomas Edison, maybe just more human than we would like to think. J.P. Morgan, again, played by Wells, initially he backs Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower with $150,000. That's a crazy amount of money back in the day. He believes it's for wireless communication, which it is. But then he finds out that Tesla wants to transmit free energy to the world. And essentially his response is, cool idea. How do I bill it? So Tesla explains that you cannot meter free power. What happens? Morgan pulls the plug. And not only that, but he blocks other investors. And the tower is eventually demolished for scrap metal. Then enters Thomas Edison, who somehow manages to both be a genius and the pettiest man alive. Tesla works for Edison early on. And Tesla's deal, so when we talked about the kind of the fight between AC versus DC, so Edison's deal is DC. And this is the war of the currents. So Tesla wants to improve the DC systems, and he's promised a $50,000 bonus, which Edison later laughs off as a joke, telling Tesla he doesn't understand American humor. This does spiral, like I said, the war of the currents, where Edison launches a full-on smear campaign against Tesla's AC power, including electrocuting animals, all to protect his business model. My God, things don't change. Those are some of the villains. But despite that, Tesla's AC system does win big at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, which becomes the first fair ever fully lit by electricity. And which system does that? AC or DC? It's Tesla's system, the AC system, that does do that. But because I said Edison is super petty, he's furious and refuses to sell light bulbs to the fair. So Tesla is teaming up with George Westinghouse, another household name. They casually invent a workaround to this bulb. And I will say, among all of the greed, corporate greed, Westinghouse is the rare bright spot here. He actually does genuinely back Tesla when no one else would. But even he eventually faces financial ruin from the war with Edison and the banking pressure around it. Tesla, who was owed millions in royalties from his team up, he tears up his contract in order to save Westinghouse, saying, all that money would have just gotten in my way. Which is either the most noble or the most tragic sentence in the entire movie. So Westinghouse, thankfully, does continue to quietly pay for Tesla's hotel room and expenses until his death. So where we see him when we enter the movie, and this we're kind of popping back in time, is he's being interviewed in his New York hotel. So he lives there sort of as a recluse towards the end of his life, and Westinghouse kind of paid for that. So that's nice. The film ends with Tesla reflecting on J.P. Morgan. Here's what he says. Here's what Tesla says about Morgan. I let him know what the world could be. And I think that is the most tragic sentence in the entire movie. And here's how it ends. Cut to modern day car traffic, smog, and pollution. Credits roll. Papich. Nicely done. Nicely done. And I will say, good thing none of this is still relevant, right? So speaking of visionary ambition and lasting impact, let's now whiplash straight into the exact opposite end of the spectrum with 1997's Home Alone 3, a movie that got a Razzie nom for the worst remake or sequel. All right, you guys. Seriously, you could not ask for most polar opposites. But now Home Alone 3 seems more, at least like towards the end of, so this is the 90s, the late 90s. He's very into his kid fare. He's no longer doing these teen movies that made him famous, that he's, tied to in an iconic way. Home Alone 3. Release date is December 12th, 1997. Oh, I will say, so the reason I thought of this, okay, the rating for Home Alone 3 is obviously PG, but there was actually no rating at all for The Secret Life of Nikola Tesla. It was 1980, so I don't know. Now, stark contrast also with the IMDb rating, 4.6 out of 10 for Home Alone 3. Now, the director here is new for the podcast. We've not covered him. His name is Raja Gosnell. And he's known for directing comedies and family films, which makes sense. And among his most known movies would be Never Been Kissed from 99, Big Mama's House from 2000, the theatrical Scooby-Doo films, 2002 and 2004, this movie, and then also Yours, Mine, and Ours from 2005, and the Smurfs live action movies from 2011 and 2013. You might wonder, he seems to come out of left field. How did he get the directing role for, what was set up to be probably quite a successful movie? He's also an editor, this Raja Gosnell, including he edited, or at least was one of the editors for Pretty Woman and also Hughes movies, Miracle on 34th Street and the first two Home Alones. So that tracks. And then obviously our writer here is John Hughes. Some of you may have seen Home Alone 3. I had not. This was my first watch for both of these movies. So if you haven't seen it, or if you purposefully forgot it in your mind, Home Alone 3 ditches the McAllisters altogether and replaces them with a new kid named Alex Pruitt, new traps, and a spy plot meets slapstick premise that feels more Saturday morning cartoon than holiday classic. In this, he has to fend off 4 international criminals who are seeking a top secret microchip in his toy car. It's louder, stranger, and determined to prove the franchise could survive without its heart. Results very much up for debate. I disagree. I don't think they're up for debate. We'll get into it. But let's talk about our cast. Again, I'm going to stick to just kind of the primary cast. But in my opinion, aside from Alex, The rest of the family cast, so there's the bad guys and then there's the family and there's like police officers, etc. But the family, I think they're doing a terrible job acting. I do think like the goons and the old neighbor lady are fine, but boy, are the family, it's quite starkly bad. Aside from Alex. So Alex Pruitt is played by Alex Linz. I don't think you'd know him for anything else. I think this is what he's most known for. But if anybody's seen the TV series Providence from 2001, I think it was pretty short-lived, but he was a regular in that. I couldn't tell you who, but. And then his mom, here's a Hughes connection for you guys. Alex's mom, named Karen in this, is played by Haviland Morris. And if anybody remembers a prior episode from 16 Candles, we talked about her. She's a recycle for Hughes, which he often does, and I appreciate that. This is 13 years later. So in 16 Candles, she plays the big crush, Jake Ryan, his girlfriend. She's wearing a blonde wig, which we talked about in the episode, because in real life, she has red hair, which she has her red hair in Home Alone 3. But in 16 Candles, they didn't want to have two redheads in the movie. The highlight would have to be Molly Ringwald in that. So Haviland Morris was wearing a blonde wig, and it was super noticeable. So anyway, in this, she's playing a suburban mom with her actual red hair, a la Catherine O'Hara. She has kind of an auburn hair. So they're really, we'll talk about it, but just remember, we're trying to keep with the formula pretty closely in this movie. So that said, we have brother Stan. He's played by Seth Smith, and you would know his face, but I couldn't really tell you what else he's in, but he kind of has that, you'd know his face, but he's basically a Buzz stand-in. Similar with Alex's sister named Molly. So again, we have the whole sibling interactions very similar to the first couple, but Scarlett Johansson plays Molly. Like I said, these people are not doing a good job acting. You know, I think she's gone on to be a wonderful actress, just not in this. And then Alex's dad, Jack, is played by Kevin Kilner, also super familiar face, but it's like that very typical dad look. He's been in like a ton of different TV episodes, lots of credits, but like one-off TV episodes. And then I also wanted to call out one of the police officers that comes to the house. So Alex calls the cops because he keeps seeing, two different times. He sees burglars, but nobody believes him. So the cops come and the burglars aren't visible to the police. So Alex gets in trouble for that. One of the police officers that comes to a burglary call is played by Neil Flynn. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Well, he is most known for playing the janitor in Scrubs. And also, I watched the show The Middle. I don't know, early like 2010s maybe. I can't recall when that was on, but it's that show with Patricia Heaton. I think they're in Indiana. It's sort of like a modern day Roseanne kind of, I would say. But anyway, he plays the husband, Mike, in The Middle. So that is our cast of characters. I don't think you'd know the goons if I named them all. So we're just not going to. But there's 4 of them, including a woman. Nicely done. The music here, I will say, we open this movie with the very familiar Home Alone music, which is great. But the music is somewhat new, at least for me and the Retromade podcast. Nick Glennie Smith is the composer here. English film score composer, conductor, and musician who is a frequent collaborator of one of my favorites, Hans Zimmer, contributing to scores including The Rock, which was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Sound. And I don't think I realized that. He's also part of Hans Zimmer's film score company named Remote Control Productions. So this is who we're working with for this movie. It had a budget of $32 million and the box office gross worldwide was $79 million. All right. My thoughts and what is happening in this movie. My favorite thing about this movie is Alex's pet rat, Doris. She is easily the MVP for me. A close second is his brother's talking parrot. So done. That's a wrap. Just kidding. We'll actually talk a little bit more about it, but if that gives you any indication of the caliber of the movie. So Alex, I think, is cute enough. I'm not even really big into kids, but he's a cute enough kid. He plays an 8-year-old. And like Kevin, again, we're following all the beats. Just like Kevin, he says adult things to play for laughs, but it seems kind of forced in this, and it lacks there's just, you can't help it. There's nothing wrong with this kid. It's just that we're used to Macaulay Culkin, who has that X factor. And it's just hard to replicate that. And he doesn't. So he is shown to be super interested in contraptions, and he has an array of small pets that come into play in the movie. Again, I really do like pet rats. Adorable. I like, truly, I love rodents. Like their little hands, they're actually extremely smart. There's bomb sniffing rats. I think that they get a bad rap. And so rodents, there's nothing wrong with them. They're just little dogs with their little hands. They're cute. Okay, so like I said, we open with the very familiar music. Now, how are we going to get the bad guys in suburban Chicago? We have a $10 million missile chip that is hidden in a remote control toy car. So they're started in like Hong Kong, I want to say. So there's like a Hong Kong crime boss. And then they're in San Francisco. And they're trying to figure out how to get this chip through airport security, right? And they put it in this toy remote control car, and then put that into this just a bag, from a store. And it happens to be a super common bakery bag. Let's say it's like a Target bag or something. Like tons of people might have that. But there's a mix-up, obviously, because it's a very, very common bakery bag. So Alex's quote unquote mean old lady neighbor, because again, beat for beat, she takes the car home instead. She put her bag through the airport security in the same bakery bag, but she actually had San Francisco sourdough bread inside. Alex's neighbor takes home the wrong bag. The bad guys realize this, so that's how we get them in Alex's neighborhood in a suburb of Chicago. Now, we have to get him home alone, right? In this, he gets chicken pox. So he's homesick from school. That's how we get him home alone. And also, no one believes him. He's super into these contraptions. He's got a telescope, lots of inventions. Like he's a pretty smart kid, and no one believes him when he calls the police. He sees them like through his telescope and the neighbors, because they're trying to figure out who's got this toy car, blah blah blah. So he gets ridiculed a little bit, just like Kevin did. Again, the siblings are sort of mean to him. The police don't quite take him seriously, like you're a crying wolf. And just like in the original Home Alone, he does get redemption in the end, which we'll get to. So one thing that's different about this, which I actually did appreciate, is that this takes place after Christmas. So everybody's kind of got their tree out by the curb. There's still some Christmas lights, but it's after Christmas, clearly. And so I guess that's a little bit of a nice change of pace. But everything else super follows the formula pretty much beat for beat. Like I said, there's this brother and sister giving him a hard time, being mean. And then there's the Kevin scream when he puts the aftershave on. But here, it's when Alex realizes that he has chicken pox. So we get that same scream. We have a redheaded mom that is reproducing Catherine O'Hara, some of her iconic looks and expressions, and the big mom-son hug at the end. So it's like really trying to reproduce that. P.S. R.I.P. Catherine O'Hara. I absolutely adore her and truly will miss her. So we need more Catherine O'Hara's in our life. There's also a dog door in this, like there was in Home Alone. And as we talked about on that episode, we don't see a dog. But if you're listening closely to the conversation that Kevin's mom is having with either the sister or a neighbor or somebody when they're packing at the beginning, she does reference that they took the dog to the kennel. So the McAllisters clearly have a dog, thus the dog door, which plays a part in all these pranks and booby traps. However, Pruitt's don't appear to have a dog. I mean, I guess you could argue they bought the house and it already had a dog door. So let's go with that. But they don't appear to have a dog, yet there's a dog door. And also the seemingly cranky at first elderly neighbor that obviously is going to grow on us in the end and be kind of part of the redemption story. This is 97. So try and, again, remember the technologies at that time. And I guess I quite liked some of the spyware that the bad guys have. I was like, oh, that's pretty cutting edge for the time. We'll put that in the pro column. Also, just kind of laughing at the era a little bit. Beepers and pagers played a fair amount in this. Also, cordless landline phones. So just a little time capsule from 1997. That's basically it. So now we get to the point where there's the setups and the booby traps and the pranks. And there's 4 bad guys. So essentially we're doubling. And they did. I mean, there were so many. There's a ton more. So much so that I think it made the movie feel long and drawn out. I was bored. I'm like, are we done yet with the, like, it just went on and on and on. And I guess I wasn't super amused after a while. So I was like, and it's not actually that long. I mean, it's longer than the average. It's an hour and 42 minutes, but it seemed like a full on 2 hours to me, which is never a good sign. Without saying much more, you can kind of guess what I feel about this movie. It's fine. I think it's a great kids movie, just using the Home Alone franchise to get viewers, but it could have just been a standalone movie. They were really following the formula, but very, very different from the original 2 Home Alones. So, you know, we can see at this time in John Hughes' career, he seems to be phoning it in, as we've talked about several times on the show with some of these later movies. Now, I did read something that I found a bit shocking in terms of reviews, critic reviews, I should say. So Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 3 out of 4 stars. And he said that he found it to be fresh, very funny, and, get this, better than the first 2. Ebert also praised the film in his review on the December 13th, 1997 episode of Siskel and Ebert, giving it a thumbs up. His colleague, Gene Siskel, thank God, gave the film a thumbs down and strongly disagreed with Ebert's positive assessment of the film, leading to a superheated argument, I guess. I didn't watch that, but I think you can probably find it on YouTube. So even so much so that at one point, Siskel questioned whether Ebert was okay, to which I super second that. So you guys, I don't think I could have found a way to be more all over the goddamn place with this episode, but these were 2 movies in the catalog of John Hughes 80s and 90s movies that I felt we had to cover because, like I said, I'm a completist. Now, you may not have seen either movie. One pretty well critically acclaimed with over a 7 point, let's see, Nikola Tesla, 7.2, super high, and then 1 below 5. And spanning such a vast difference in time, like so much happened in the 17-year span between these movies. So, you know, I didn't even try and find some sort of a great segue for these movies. There's nothing that ties them together other than the fact that John Hughes had a hand in writing them. So I would like to know who actually has seen either of these movies. I bet some of you have seen Home Alone 3, but I'd be shocked if anyone has seen The Secret Life of Nikola Tesla. But if you have, please let me know. Have you even heard of The Secret Life of Nikola Tesla? You just have to write in or comment on YouTube to let me know your thoughts. And there are a few episodes left, so don't go anywhere. There's a few episodes left in this John Hughes catalog that we haven't covered, including one of the 8 that he wrote and directed. I can't believe no one's chosen it yet. So without further ado, this does wrap up the super strange double feature that I've tackled. The Secret Life of Nikola Tesla, followed by Home Alone 3, which I guarantee is the widest tonal gap in Retromade history. If you're actually still listening at this point in the show, sincerely thank you. And I promise probably, that the next episode will make much more sense. So remember, review, comment, email, tip, all of the things. And until next time, be kind, rewind,